Aloha, I'm Keikoa Kalahiva, the first Deputy Director of the Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources.
And aloha, I'm Kurt Cottrell, the Administrator for the Hawaii Division of State Parks. I first came to Kalalau in 1983, and now I'm standing on this trail as one of its stewards. This is a rare privilege. 750,000 people per year hike along this trail to visit the Napali Coast State Wilderness Park.
This is the picture-perfect kind of view that people around the world associate with Hawaii. The Napali Coast is celebrated in many of Hawaii's most treasured songs and hula.
During the next half hour, hike with us along the Napali Coast. Along the way, we're going to observe renegades who have diminished this wilderness experience by setting up elaborate long-term camps and who use boats and jet skis to illegally bring passengers and all their stuff. And we'll tell you about the rewards you'll experience when you visit the Napali Coast State Wilderness Park.
We're going to show you some of the risks associated with hiking, backpacking, swimming, and crossing streams here on the Napali. We begin with Renegades. Here is DLNR Senior Communications Manager, Dan Dennison.
This is a cause and effect story.
I think a jet ski is going to take me to the area where the boat is, and then the boat's going to take me to where the car is. And you know, I kind of regret doing this choice because I want to be a team player and do it, but at the same time, like, I think it was a little, since I see this opportunity, I'm just going to take it, and then also I need to make sure that our rental car is okay.
On this winter day, the swell at Kalalau Beach is big. We watch as a jet ski operator makes trip after trip through the high surf. Sandy Cho paid $125 for a ride out to avoid making the 11-mile hike back to her car.
Actually, the guy next door, in the camp next door, he told me that there were guys coming, and then I guess they do a really good job to let everybody know. So the guy who came in on the jet ski, he came to our camp and told us that he was going to leave in an hour and that he would take us there.
Working in consort with a packed Zodiac waiting beyond the surf break, we watch as the jet ski makes nearly a dozen trips back and forth, depositing illegal campers and all of their stuff on the beach. This is the cause.
From my experience, because I've dealt with it before, this is a commercial activity and this is a business venture of guys making a lot of money, bringing people in and out of this area, which is, my opinion, as an enforcer, is a really dangerous situation because a lot of the illegals that transport people back and forth, they're not really having safety in mind as far as overloading the boats, the elements coming in on the big surf. Anything could happen, you know, even the most experienced jet ski operator could get in trouble and lose a passenger and end up drowning or something.
And this is the effect.
I don't understand how people could be this irresponsible. I don't know. There's no way this stuff was hiked in. This was all brought in by a boat. And it all doesn't go out. State Parks is left with having to remove this stuff via helicopter. Very expensive.
When this man saw us videotaping his operation, he protested that he was just helping out a hiker who'd sprained her ankle. Then apparently another 10 or 12 hikers needed the same kind of goodwill, as he took people from the Zodiac to the beach and from the beach to the Zodiac. Over the years, illegal transportation into the Napali Coast State Wilderness Park has left a landscape littered with trash. Not just a little rubbish, but bags and bags, tons and tons, and sling after sling of it. At least once a month, a crew from the DLNR Division of State Parks arrive by helicopter for what is typically a 2-day cleanup mission. These operations cost you, the taxpayer, a lot of money.
Our maintenance crew comes in diligently once a month, takes out the rubbish, cleans the composters, does whatever maintenance they can. But given the fact that it's a remote wilderness destination with all of the issues that we've been talking about, we really need to have on site 24/7 some devoted and dedicated and trained staff to deal with all of the situations out here.
The situation is this. During 2 cleanup operations in early 2016, the state parks crew cleaned up, collected, and flew out 3,900 pounds of trash and 5,300 pounds of human waste. Why are they flying excrement out in 55-gallon barrels? 17 in all this time.
It's a comfort station that's supposed to be compostable. Never has an opportunity to do that because there's way too much use on it.
Shoveling, you know what, from the tank of composting toilets has to be one of the worst jobs ever. The designated camping area fronting Kalalau Beach is supposed to be, and the composting toilets are designed for, 60 people a night who obtain camping permits from the Division of State Parks. Often the number more than doubles between those who arrive illegally by sea and those who hike in without a permit.
Okay, wait a minute. What happening today is to be within the Napali State Park, Kalalau area, you need a valid permit, yeah? Valid entry permit. Right now you couldn't produce any permit. We checked the permit list. We didn't see a name on the permit, okay? So what we're doing, we're issuing you a citation for being in there without a permit, okay? Violation is the proposed area of violation. You need a permit to be in here.
During a series of law enforcement operations this year, officers from the DLNR Division of Conservation and Resources Enforcement, known as DOCARE, issued 75 citations to people who couldn't produce camping permits.
Now you have a memento and documentation that you hear. A permit would be much better documentation than a memento.
They also posted notices to vacate numerous long-term and illegal camps. In a few minutes, we'll show you what then happens to these large camps. This is all part of a renewed effort to try and restore the entire length of the Napali coast to its wilderness character.
Basically, the legal people, they're upset because they have to go through the process and get a permit and so forth. And, it's upsetting for them that a lot of them come here and the campsites are taken by the illegals. So that is, it turns out to be a bad experience. And we don't want to have that kind of experiences from our visitors or locals.
Another effect of the lucrative illegal transportation to and from Kalalau Beach. As state parks workers and DOCARE officers about finish the cleanup of this elaborate long-term illegal camp in a prime location, a man lands his jet ski.
Let's finish up. Do Bob and then we finish up. Come on, man. Don't do this to me. No, but listen. Let's do this thing. Let's do this thing right now.
The camp he's escorted to is said to be his Kalalau base of operations. Francis Alakai Kinimaka is no stranger to violating the rules here. Over the course of more than 15 years, he's been cited no fewer than 18 times for various petty misdemeanors. This time around, he's flown out on handcuffs, his camp already having been dismantled, and he faces 4 new charges when he appears in court. He and other illegal commercial operators argue they're just helping out people in need and actually do a lot to keep the place tidy.
I know for a fact, as the person out on the ground chasing these guys, actually cleaning up their mess, that a lot of them say they're nature lovers, but I beg to differ because I am the person and my guys and all of state parks and everyone that is involved did several large enforcement / cleanup sweeps, and there were a lot of rubbish that the people that say they're nature lovers that left behind, and all of us ended up cleaning up that rubbish. So I disagree and beg to differ that they are nature lovers.
Cause and effect. One of the definitions the dictionary gives for wilderness is a wild and natural area in which few people live. The Napali and Kalalau should be Hawaii's preeminent definition of wilderness, and it's hoped all the efforts to get it there will succeed.
The Napali coast is a beautiful place filled with archaeological sites, culturally significant areas that we as a department would like to preserve and protect for generations to come. And so we are committed to having a presence here, ensuring that people understand the significance of this place.
In our final segment, we'll discover the many natural and cultural rewards waiting for the Napali visitor. But first, when Renegades, Risks and Rewards of the Napali Coast returns, we'll explore some of the risks you might encounter.
We're here along Hanakapiai Stream, and this is as far as the vast majority of the 750,000 visitors per year get to the Napali Coast and Kalalau.
As you can see, crossing Hanakapiai Stream when it's low like this is no big deal. If you head up valley to Hanakapiai Falls, it's another 2 miles and 4 or 5 additional stream crossings.
The terrain along the Napali Coast is what creates a perpetual problem. If you're standing here, you can't see up into the mountains and into one of the wettest spots on Earth, Mount Waialeale, at over 400 inches of rain per year.
This stream and all of the others flowing into the ocean from Mauka to Makai along the Napali coast can rise dangerously fast. People have been swept into the ocean and to their deaths while attempting to cross this stream during high water.
This is one of the central risks of hiking Kalalau and the Napali coast.
It just got really treacherous and it was coming down, so we only stayed a minute in the falls and we got to the first river crossing, and which we had just crossed 15 minutes earlier, and it had risen up quite a bit. And while we were crossing, my daughter was in the backpack with me, and I was holding my daughter, 9-year-old daughter's hand, and she was holding Zachary's hand, and he slipped, and then he let go of his sister's hand so he didn't pull her in, and I tried to grab his hand, and I slipped, and so my daughter, who was in the backpack with me, got swept in the river with me, and Zach got swept in the river in really high force rapids, and we went over a couple little drops, and seemed like forever, but it was probably somewhere between 30 and 60 seconds. And then
this is the kind of story that spreads fast on social media, and there are dozens of them.
Pretty much all of their weight was being held up on the line, and the line was very thin, and had that snap, they would have been sucked out to sea and bashed on the rocks. They did make it, luckily. A few of them almost got sucked out to sea. And after the last couple, one of them came very close to death. And at that point, they said, "You guys shouldn't cross." And I was of the same decision because the risk seemed simply too high. It was incredibly fast flowing. It was very deep above the waist, and it was very brown and turbulent waters.
In February 2016, 12 people were stranded for a night on the wrong side of Hanakapiai Stream. A year and a half earlier, more than 100 others were flown out by the Kauai Fire Department after a flash flood trapped them. This happens all the time when Hanakapiai rises fast from rain in the mountains above.
One girl really nearly lost her life.
There were 2 people crossing it. They spent like a rope, and they were trying to get like with the rope over the stream, and there was a guy and a girl crossing it, and the girl, she like couldn't hold it anymore, so she got into the water, and in the last second the guy grabbed her and she climbed on his back. So we thought it's like all over for her. It was crazy. Some people, they just got in panic and said, "We have to cross, we have to cross."
Good judgment is the primary way to reduce any risk associated with hiking Kalalau.
Most of the lives that are lost there are because of the stream. They try and cross the stream when they shouldn't, and then they're too weak to hold onto the rope, or their feet slip out from underneath of them and they go down the stream.
When this stream comes up, more frequently than not, there's a lot of visitors trapped on the wrong side, and the temptation to cross the stream when it's dangerous, particularly for visitors that are on an itinerary and they got to get out, it creates too much of an opportunity for danger and risk, and there have been incidents where people have been swept out to sea. As you saw in Keikoa's introduction to the segment, even when the water is low, the rocks are slick, often very slick.
As you can see, crossing Hanakapiai Stream when it's low like this is no big deal.
Honestly, we did not cue her. The Kalalau Trail is often rated as one of the top 10 most beautiful hikes in the world, and also, due to the flash floods, as one of the 10 most dangerous. Plenty of folks have had to be evacuated by rescue helicopter.
What we're going to do is flight you out to Prince Airport, and then medics will pick you up over there and they'll be able to take you to the hospital.
Even a minor fall, like this pregnant woman took, results in extra caution. The trail is maintained, but it takes a constant pounding from the elements, is steep, both up and down, and did we say slick?
We can just caution people to be very careful when they walk the trail, to be very thoughtful of the process. I mean, we've seen people from 18 months old on the trail with a parent to 70 plus years old on the trail, and I'm not saying they should or couldn't go, I'm just saying they got to very cautiously think about what they're going to do to prepare themselves to walk the trail.
After people cross Hanakapiai Stream, a cool dip in the ocean is really inviting. But even in summer months, the waves here are deceptive and dangerous.
The undertow can be very, very strong out here, and people are totally unaware of it because they see the calm surface. They don't see what's going on underneath. So they go out too far, get off of their feet, start swimming around, and the undertow takes them out, and they don't even know that it's happening. And then it's extremely hard to get back in unless they're very strong swimmers.
Another example of where good judgment is key. You decide if this guy has it. That's exciting to watch. The problem is when people take risks like this, others are inclined to follow. The internet spreads these deeds of daring do at the speed of light and makes selfie producers instant extreme adventure heroes.
We found that there were hundreds and thousands of different websites and places that people could go that didn't really have good information, especially in the safety information. They didn't give good safety information.
Social media is the new norm for information. Good, bad, and dangerous.
Most of the information that's online is not necessarily accurate. That's one of the problems with it. But if people see it online, they believe it's true. And that makes it a little more dangerous.
This is why we encourage you to only act on information from trusted and reliable sources for travel and adventure information about our Hawaii state parks. With the right preparation and good judgment, most reasonably fit people can safely hike Kalalau to Hanakapiai. In the beauty of the There they'll be rewarded for their efforts. That's coming up next on Renegades, Risks, and Rewards of the Napali Coast. We've looked at the Renegades and a few of the basic risks of Kalalau and the Napali Coast State Wilderness Park. We can't eliminate all of the risk because so much of it is reliant upon the individual hiker's skill, but we are working towards solving the problems caused by the Renegades.
We found that many people, especially those visiting for the first time, don't always consider the risks and haven't heard much about the Renegades. They're here for the rewards. Listen to these hikers describe their experiences on the Kalalau Trail in the Napali Coast State Wilderness Park.
Overall, it was really gorgeous. What people say about the trail is true. It's definitely beautiful.
I love it. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, just, I'm not used to all the mud, but, you know, we kind of have dry trails by where we are, but I enjoyed it. It's beautiful.
Great.
It's amazing.
There aren't enough superlatives to describe the stunning beauty of the Napali Coast. The ocean, wind, waves, and erosion carved a spectacular landscape that attracts hundreds of thousands of people to the Napali coast each year. In addition to all the people who walk in on the Kalalau Trail, dozens of tour helicopters fly people over for bird's-eye views of the coast, sea caves, mountains, and waterfalls. In summer months, kayakers get a different perspective from the water. This is a place to relax, recharge, and reflect.
Of the beauty of Hawaii we sing, holding steady while the winds of change are blowing.
No matter how you visit, a trip to the Napali Coast State Wilderness Park is almost always an unforgettable experience, and one that tops many bucket lists. The valleys of the Napali are rich in nature and culture.
The iconic image of Napali is really this offshore view where you see this amazing geology overlain by this mantle of green vegetation. And but for me as an archaeologist, I'm really interested at what's immediately underneath that layer. Because underneath that covering green mantle is this really amazing cultural landscape. Hawaiians essentially lived and farmed Napali for perhaps 1,000 years, and they created this subtle landscape of rock-walled terraces, house sites, rock-lined graves, rock-walled and paved heiau or temple sites in prominent locations. And it's really, you know, that subtle layer beneath the vegetation that I love so much about Napali, and which is really being desecrated and disrespected through the actions, sometimes purposeful, sometimes inadvertent, by park visitors and illegal residents.
This looks like an old fire pit. Carpenter believes it was actually part of an ancient rock wall. Someone tore it down to build the pit.
So all of these rock walls that people see, they're omnipresent on the coast as you're hiking, they really represent the legacy of centuries of Hawaiian use and habitation. What's really disheartening to me is to see people who lack a wilderness ethic. You know, the simple premise of take only pictures and leave only footprints is missing. And because the rock walls they're not mortared, they're fragile, you know, erosion takes a very slow toll on these places. The human impact is much more immediate and severe. So when people take these, you know, small areas and create fire pits or tent outlines, ovens, I've seen things like waterbed platforms, you know, they're essentially deconstructing and desecrating centuries of history, one rock at a time. Those who practice the wilderness ethic would simply see something and say, well, it's not my place to move that. And that's the real issue, of course, is with the illegals, because they live and they create their own modern spaces within these traditional ones. And therein lies the conflict. The average person who hikes down legally, stays for a night or two, they're too tired and they want to explore. They don't have the time to put into attempting to create their own space, right? They're more interested in experiencing it. It's really the illegals who have that time. And though they claim that they're helping and caring for the place, in some ways maybe they are, but they certainly aren't in terms of preserving the historic integrity of the archaeological landscape of Napali. So, I mean, the best thing I can offer for advice is for people to simply leave well enough alone, practice the wilderness ethic. There are places where we actually have undertaken the painstaking process of documenting, mapping, you know, going through a historic preservation review process, and have begun to restore features, not in Kalalau, which is the main area where we're worried about the damage, but down the coast in other valleys like Nuololo, Miloli'i, we have community groups working to actually enhance and restore these rock-walled features, returning a sense of respect and traditional knowledge to them. it would be wonderful to bring that aspect to Kalalau as well, and I hope that our programmatic ability will allow us to do so in the future.
We've demonstrated for you many of the issues associated with managing this wilderness area, including shutting down illegal activity, maintaining the pristine nature of the Napali, and keeping people safe. Remember the little slip earlier in the show? Remember we told you about hundreds and hundreds of people who've been rescued when Hanakapiai Stream floods? We hope that very soon these rescues will no longer be necessary.
Well, in the short term, we're doing the planning and design and ultimately the construction of a bridge for this location. The bridge will be an important new element for public safety and just as importantly to protect the safety of the Kauai firefighters that have to come in and fly in and rescue people. In the longer term, what this park desperately needs is we need funding for a couple positions to be on site with satellite phones.
The state, through the Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources, is committed to restoring its true wilderness character.
We've provided you with reliable information about the Napali Coast State Wilderness Park.
And about the Renegades, risks and rewards of the Napali Coast.
We encourage you to check out trusted sources of information when thinking about a trip here. And you'll see those sources on your screen in just a few moments.
Mahalo for joining us for Renegades, risks and rewards of the Napali Coast. We hope your trip here in person or enjoying this spectacular place in photos, videos, or on social media is safe, enjoyable, and legal. Aloha.